This is the second tier of approaches to management, and basically, this is the Human Relations School of Management, and this is the post what you would call a classical approach to management. And the idea is that in the 30s and 40s, people began to look at management a little bit differently and said, well, maybe workers were not necessarily just motivated by economic factors. I'm going to go to work, I'm going to make money, I'm going to leave. But there were other things within the person's self that made a difference in the level of productivity that they had. Yeah, you needed pay, you needed benefits, but you also needed a level of satisfaction in achieving end goals. And oftentimes you may have been in a case, even in classes, where it's not just about the grade. It may be about other successes within the class that you have that make a difference, and it's true in the workplace as well. You may not get a raise for 5 or 6 years, but you may love your job because you gain a certain level of satisfaction. And so basically this particular lecture is going to deal solely with the human relations aspect approach to management. There are a variety of individuals out there that develop different ideas related to human relations in the management area. One of those was Elton Mayo, and you may have heard of the Hawthorne studies. You may have heard of the Hawthorne effect, and that is when people are being watched, they have a tendency to perform differently in their jobs than when they're not being watched. And there's a lot of different elements to this particular study. This particular study was done in the 1920s, and they were looking to see, they asked this gentleman if he would come and study whether worker productivity was influenced by lighting. And, the amount of light you have in a room may determine or may have an effect on your level of productivity. And so they went through and they watched the plant workers. They put different groups of people in different levels of the experiment. Obviously, a control group worked with normal lighting. A experimental group worked with varying levels of lighting. And when the lighting increased with the experimental group, productivity went up. Well, this wasn't a one-shot deal. They did this over time, and that was a good thing. They worked on it for 1.5 years, and they started noticing that maybe the lighting that was making as much difference as it was the level of interaction between supervisors and their workers. And they noticed that when the managers seemed to show greater attention to their employees, the level of productivity went up. And so basically, you're sitting there and you're going, okay, yeah, that seems to make sense, doesn't it? If your managers know and take an interest in what you're doing, that makes you, in many cases, want to do better. And that's something that every manager should think about. There's another human relations approach. That's Maslow's hierarchy of needs approach. And this looks at employee motivations, and basically employees operate off of certain levels of needs. And so if you meet the most basic of needs, then you can climb to the next level and the next level. And the more levels I think that you can climb to, the better your organization is going to be. But there's a basic physical need that you have, that you have enough food and water, and you have shelter and clothing. You're going to be a better worker if you have those things. You're going to come to work on time, and you're going to do that sort of thing. There's also a level of safety, a feeling of being safe in your area, that you don't think that there's going to be something bad happen to you while you're working. And this is true in any job position, whether you're a policeman, a fireman, a professor, a person who is an anchor at a TV station, a reporter, you're a graphic artist, a graphic communicator. All those things, you want to feel safe in your environment as you do your work. There's another element of need, of social needs in relationship to feeling like you belong and are being accepted. And it's really tough sometimes. You get in organizations and sometimes you feel like you're the last person out and you're the last person to know. And you begin doubting yourself and you start wondering, am I doing what I'm supposed to do? Is my job safe, or are they talking bad about me behind my back? And can I be productive when those things are happening? Sometimes you cannot be productive when those things are happening. Then there's a level of esteem, your own personal self-esteem. Do you feel good about yourself? And to have a really good employee, your employees need to feel good about themselves. And as a manager, you have to recognize that that's an ongoing need that an employee has. And then, is there a way in your current work environment to create the ability for that employee to be the very maximum level what they want to be? Are they achieving what they want to achieve? And you can look at different individuals. You can look even at their social media type conversations that they have, and you can actually see whether they have a spirit of, I love my job, I'm achieving what I want to achieve, I'm at a place, a good, happy place. But that doesn't mean that you as an employee might not move on to another place that gives you even more happiness, because at some point you grow to a level where, okay, do I want to move to a different place in time? And those are things where you want to be able as a manager to help put all the puzzle pieces together so an employee can really reach their ultimate potential in their job. Herzberg's hygiene and motivator factors, and this is kind of interesting. And a lot of these seem to be redundant in some ways, but basically he set out and identified two different areas of motivating factors. And motivators and hygiene factors. Hygiene factors basically deal with the work environment, what's going on there, what's the technical and physical conditions within your company structure, what policies and procedures are in place for you to be able to achieve your goal, who's the supervisor, what is the supervision level, the work itself, and then wages and benefits. And then there's the motivator factors, okay? The hygiene stuff is in the essence of really the physical environment that you're in, where the motivators, that comes down to the job itself. And are you receiving recognition for a job well done? What achievements are you making? What levels of responsibility do you hold? And is there a possibility for individual growth and development? basically there's two typologies for employee needs: hygiene and the need for positive hygiene. You feel good in the space where you are, and then the motivating factors. If there's the motivation there, if there's an opportunity for individual growth and development, then that normally equates to job satisfaction. And then there's another approach, and this has been used at different times. It's the theory X and Y, human relations approach, and then we'll add the Z theory here in just a minute. But the theory X and Y, basically Douglas McGregor developed some of this. He was an industrial psychologist. And it's interesting, isn't it? Trying to get workers to do what you want workers to do. Well, the theory X suggests that you had to control and you had to threaten, you had to coerce someone in order to motivate somebody to do the job. But the theory Y adds the element of, what about the needs of the worker? And what about the needs of the organization? And it yields, in some respects, less control, but in many respects, perhaps greater productivity. That's where you're looking at, can I take this individual and where can I place them best in order to achieve our goals? And we had an opportunity to have one of the Arkansas Business of the Year owners in the classroom recently. And one of the things that they operate off of in this particular organization is, let's look and see what type of person you are. And there's a test that they give each of their employees, and it's kind of like a personality test in essence, but also it allows them to move their people about into positions that probably will be the most rewarding for the individual and thus be most rewarding for the organization as a whole. And then by placing those people in those specific positions, there's a level and a system of reward for doing a job well done. And you'll see many of these traits here. You'll see this in a lot of different organizations across the board, whatever you're in. Then there's the theory Z, human relations approach. And this particular approach got a little bit of traction in the 1980s, but there was quite a bit of criticism about it. And that's because they did comparisons of management styles between American and Japanese organizations. And in this organization, though, the suggestion is having that interpersonal relationship between workers and managers is really important. And that's still really a key element. If a manager knows all it's in his or her employees' names, that's important. If the manager knows a little bit about each of those individual people, that's important so that they can make good decisions about what happens within the company. In media management situations, you can apply this to employee training. You can apply it to the different types of fringe benefit programs that exist. And then most importantly, what lines of communication exist with these particular managers. And that takes care of the human relations approach to management.